So I finished the last episode of People Just Do Nothing.
Yeah.
When he runs down and he finds Grinda and he shows him the 2 tattoos on his legs. He's got the 2 tattoos on his legs.
Oh, man. That show's hilarious.
It's so good. And that ending, it's like, so like, it shows that they care about each other and stuff. Yeah. It's just so nice in a way that only works for that show. I just love it. Yeah. Totally like earned finale.
Yeah.
They did the same thing in season 3 when I think Beats has the baby.
Yeah.
Something happens to Grinda, I can't remember what, and then Steve's grandmother dies. His nan.
And he thinks the baby is his nan.
Yeah. But it's really sweet ending for what, for the most part, is like an irrelevant, stupid show.
So shall we dive into this week's episode?
Let's go for it.
Sure.
Let's go for it. All right, everybody. Welcome to yet another episode of Matchday Matinee, where we dive into the cinematic takes on the beautiful game. My name is Raghav Sandhu, and I'm joined here by Mark Guillerme and Adam Ducker. Sorry about that, Mark. But how are you guys doing? How are you doing, Mark?
Good. Enjoying CPL. CPL's back.
CPL's back. There you go.
The Island Games have begun, so I'm enjoying that.
That
nice
was
some Canadian soccer back.
That was quite the ending there, for Cavalry.
What happened? I missed it.
Yeah, there was a penalty call that was definitely not a penalty. It kind of hit the Samuel, his name is, I think. It hit him like here. Yeah, and they gave a penalty in the 94th minute. It was 2-2.
It was 2-2 at the end.
That's all right.
Yeah. Anyways, there's going to be plenty of coverage in CPL going forward. How are you doing, Adam?
Yeah, I'm good. It's nice to watch some football that I'm not getting angry about. So yeah,
that's
all good.
And in the evening when we're free of work and all that.
In the evening, not trying to get around not working and stuff, right? Or
It's on the subject of CGI, which I'm sure we're going to speak about a lot in this movie. The virtual stadium, very cool.
Yep.
Much better in motion than I anticipated.
Yeah, I had doubts because the promo just said the world's first virtual soccer experience or something. It said in the email. I was like, what the hell does that mean? And that's not what I was expecting at all, to be honest. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it looked good.
Yeah.
I think the next step, just like the movie we're about to review today, is if, the players had game breakers and things like that.
Like fire trails when they kick the ball.
That's it.
That is something Forge would do, I could picture.
100%.
Dragonflies in.
Yeah, but while we're on that subject, let's dive into today's movie. And today we are reviewing Shaolin Soccer. It's a 2001 Cantonese language film based in Hong Kong. As a lot of people know, Hong Kong cinema is pretty big around the world. And even internationally, there's been movies like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon that came out of there. That's the biggest example. I'm sure there's a lot of others as well, Jet Li movies especially. But today we're talking about Shaolin Soccer, released in 2001, directed by the famous director from Hong Kong, Stephen Chow, who also plays the main character, and the main character's name is Steel Leg Singh. So yeah, it's you'll see that there's quite there's some funny names in this movie, but yeah, the director Stephen Chow is also the main actor, Steel Leg Singh. The movie also stars. And I apologize in advance if I butcher any of these names, but En Man Tat as Golden Leg Feng, who's the other main character, Wang Yat Fei as Ironhead, who's one of the other Shaolin brothers, and then Zhao Wei as Mui, who's a love interest of Steel Leg Singh.
Is she though?
Well, we'll get into that.
Unrequited love.
Well, we'll get into that. It's it's an interesting movie for sure. It was produced by Star Overseas and Universe Entertainment. That's Universe Entertainment and not Universal Entertainment. This is a Hong Kong-based entertainment company. It's distributed internationally by Miramax Films, and the total running time is 112 minutes. So just to give you a brief synopsis of this film without jumping into the plot or anything, and I'm sure we'll get there as we discuss the movie, but essentially it's former soccer star Golden Leg Feng is on the outs with his boss and former teammate Coach Hung. When he meets Golden Legs, he sees an opportunity to get even with his former coach, the man whose corruption led a furious crowd to attack and cripple Golden Leg forever, thus ending his career. The two new friends visit the former Shaolin brothers to recruit a soccer team and go for the $1 million prize. So this is an open tournament that takes place where he basically wants to face his former coach and win a $1 million prize. They blow past the competition in this tournament after using their Shaolin Kung Fu moves, but find an unexpected challenge and an ally in the final round. So what did you guys think of this movie?
I really enjoyed it. A weird thing is, I totally thought I'd seen this film, but it turns out I actually hadn't. I must have seen like clips of it on YouTube, and then all of the like story stuff is actually, I realized I've seen Kung Fu Hustle, which was Stephen Chow's film after this. So somehow in my head, I had what happens in Kung Fu Hustle mixed up with this film. Yeah. So I totally didn't, like at first I wasn't sure what the hell I was watching. I was really confused.
Yeah.
And then there was some point, like at one point he meets that choreographer and starts singing and stuff. And I was like, holy shit. I was like, is it a musical as well? They like start dancing to like 80s synth. But overall, we'll kind of get into it more, but I really enjoyed this film, even though it's utter bonkers.
Yeah, and you know what? Towards the end of the film, I actually felt the same way, where it's like, it was preposterous. There's no two ways about it. Some of the scenes, you're like, what is going on? But at the end, I'm like, you know what? This movie actually has some good themes that are very prevalent in this movie, but we'll get into those. Mark, what did you think?
I think I'm pretty sure I enjoyed it. I mean, it's one of those movies that it's almost like Anchorman or Scott Pilgrim, which just turned 10, that it's so absurd that the first time you watch it, your head doesn't know how to process it. You don't know what like the rules of the universe are. You don't know if it's grounded in reality. And then all of a sudden somebody starts running like 10 times faster than they should. Yeah. So it kind of throws you for a loop, and it takes a lot to process. And some of these movies, it takes a second watch for me to enjoy. Yeah. Like Anchorman, I probably walked out of theater. I did walk out of the theaters the first time I watched it. And then I've watched it since then, like 10 or 12 times. Just because it's such a weird movie that you need to process the first time.
For sure.
And I did enjoy it for the most part, but there were parts where I was kind of in my own head thinking, is this a bad movie? I remember it being good, but I think it's a bad movie.
Yeah, I also, like Adam, actually, I also believed that I saw this movie in the past. And actually, I don't think I have either. Because I don't remember the storyline. All I remember is people kicking a soccer ball around, doing kung fu moves, but it may not have been this movie. So for me, it was almost like I was watching it for the first time, which I probably was. But what I see is two big plot lines in this movie. The first one is about Golden Leg, and how he's disrespected by his former teammate and coach, and he's essentially, wanting to coach a team but doesn't get an opportunity from him, who's now the owner of this competition. So he doesn't get an opportunity from him to coach because there's some animosity there. He basically gets insulted, and now he's looking for players to coach. He's just out on the street. And then the second kind of plot line is Steel Leg. So there's Golden Leg and Steel Leg. Steel Leg is essentially looking to promote Kung Fu throughout at least Hong Kong, if not the world. And he's looking at ways he can do that. And so some of the ways that he looks at doing it is, hey, what if we incorporate it into a song and dance routine at a bar? You know how they have open mic nights and things like that. That was an hilarious scene, by the way, because they can't really sing and then they get beaten up by everybody at the bar. But yeah, really just how can he promote the culture of Kung Fu throughout Hong Kong? And then the other, of course, Golden Leg is, how can I get back into soccer? And these two worlds kind of collide, and they come to the conclusion that, hey, we can promote Kung Fu in the world while playing soccer. So we're going to play Kung Fu Soccer, which, by the way, when I mentioned Kung Fu Soccer, is originally what this movie was supposed to be called in its American release. Okay. Yeah.
It took a while to get over here too. I think Miramax put it on the shelf for like 3 years.
Yeah.
I don't think they knew how to market it. It was too weird of a movie at that time. Which is funny because it borrows a lot from The Matrix as well.
That's literally, I was thinking of the timeline of The Matrix, because there's some things skipping ahead. Like there's the bit where the girl Mew does that thing where she's kind of effortlessly fighting the guys that attack her when she's all dressed up.
Yeah.
And then there's some bits that kind of even outdo The Matrix, which is there's the bit with there's bullet time stuff, but also the bit where they play that team of bullies. And then the guys, they're all throwing their shoes at the keeper. And just after they kind of all get their powers back, he stops them all, just like Neo stops the bullets. But then he kind of they all wind up in a ball or something. He hurls them back at them. So kind of, because in the Matrix, he just stops a couple of bullets and they drop to the ground. So that's
grabs one.
Yeah, and grabs one. Yeah, it's just weird. That's weird that it was kind of came out that close to it, or was developed that close to it.
Yeah. I think we mentioned it before. Like the Matrix influenced literally everything at that point.
Yeah.
Like comedies, and it was Mike Bassett. We were talking about Mike Bassett.
Yes, with the CGI scenes in the football training camp.
And the CGI in this movie is pretty bad. It's used a lot, but
yeah, it's noticeable, right? Like the ball looks completely different when it's a CGI ball. They try to mix it as best as they can with like wire foo. Like you can tell when the players are getting dragged by wires, but then you can also tell when the ball's not really there because it kind of has like a weird grey tone to it when it's not a real football.
Yeah, everything's a little bit too glossy.
Yeah. But I still enjoyed it for what it is.
Same here, exactly. And I think one of my favorite scenes is actually when he sees Mui for the first time, and she's a chef, she's a baker,
sweet roll,
and she's rolling dumplings basically, and she's using all these Tai Chi moves to roll the dumplings. I thought that was kind of cool. Just using martial arts. It kind of reminded me of wax on, wax off.
Yeah,
from the Karate Kid.
Like a bit, there's like a certain like magical quality to it. It's trying to show like that Tai Chi's like magical and Kung Fu can be. Yeah. That's when you start to get the sense of the film you're watching, right? But then even that's weird because you go from that banana peel girl falling over and like Steel Leg's kind of like, if she knew Kung Fu, she wouldn't fall over. And then she kind of is falling, going like this at the camera. Yeah. And then you cut to this beautiful scene of this girl making these sweet rolls, like majestically and stuff, spinning these things and the quarters spinning in the pot. It's like but I guess that's its way of like much as the film's trying to celebrate Kung Fu, that's its way of trying to celebrate other parts of Asian culture, right? And like almost giving a majesty to their cooking.
Absolutely.
In the same sort of graphical way that they do to the football.
Yeah. But I think that's what intrigues him about Mui. Because his whole thing is you can use Kung Fu in every way of life.
Yeah.
If that girl knew Kung Fu, she would be able to just Hadouken her car and parallel park it.
Exactly.
That guy would be able to like praying mantis to bushes instead of having to cut them like that.
Yep.
So him seeing this girl using Kung Fu to make dinner rolls was like his dream come true.
And that's why he loves her and thinks she's beautiful, even though she has... I guess she's not traditionally beautiful,
but even like they try to make it sentimental when they're in the clothing store. Yeah, not sentimental, but just like a touching moment between them. But it's still such a weird type of humor where he's telling her she's beautiful, but then there's flies going around her head. Literally smacks her in the face trying to get a fly, and it's like, what's the message here?
And then the other scene, she gets that makeover, comes and hangs out with them all like behind a dirty kitchen, and they're all like mocking her, making jokes, and she's like laughing along with it. Then gets really upset, then fights with her boss and like Matrix style, like flaps away her boss, and then they start joking again, and she pretends to get upset again, and it's like, what's the like? Is she beautiful in the inside? But then you can joke, and they all make it's like lads jokes again. But then I wonder if Asia has a weird, like, or some parts of Asia have like not weird, that's the wrong way to say it, a sex culture that we perhaps don't understand in the same way, right?
Yeah.
At that point, I was like, is this just something I like in my notes, I wrote, I really don't understand this scene.
No, exactly. And that's what I felt as well. And, for a moment there, I'm like, hey, this movie is touching on women's empowerment, right? He's telling her to stand up for yourself, be beautiful, be courageous. And then it's like, pose in a sexy pose. And I was like, what?
Yeah. And then shortly after that scene, they play against that team of women that are dressed as men.
Yep.
Who also seemingly have powers as well, which they dismiss. They dismiss that they can't have powers. It must just be special effects.
Yeah.
But then it's like, okay, so then what's that trying to say? Is that dismissive of like some sort of gender? Is that like making a commentary on gender or something? And it's just like, there's all these weird little comments he's making whilst also paying like a loving homage to like Chinese culture and Hong Kong culture. Like the fact that the goalie's dressed in that same yellow jumpsuit suit that Bruce Lee wears in Game of Death. It's like, that's really cool. Like, it's a cool touch.
So there's two facts there.
Footy facts.
Well, not footy fact. It's more of a movie fact, more of a Stephen Chow fact, actually, who's the director as well as the main actor. It's that mustache team, your team mustache that you're talking about, is actually an homage to a movie that he had directed in the past where the main character was a geisha, but she had a mustache drawn on. So it was an homage to that. And
that opens even more questions.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure why, but the other one was that the goalkeeper was actually based off of Bruce Lee. So the whole the haircut, just the look and everything, he actually did want to pay respect to Bruce Lee as well.
Even the aviators and the way they take him out on the on the stretcher. Apparently, that was the actual way that Bruce Lee was buried in his coffin.
Yeah, on a stretcher.
So yeah,
yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, so I think more than just you're right, Adam. More than just a kung fu movie, I think this really did want to pay or shout out Hong Kong and the culture in Hong Kong, which I've been to, by the way, 2 years ago. Beautiful place. Unfortunately, some things are going on there now that are not, ideal for the people there. But it's a really different place and just alive 24 hours a day. So yeah,
has a unique culture from mainland China as well. You would say, right?
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
I preserve.
Yeah, because you gotta imagine they were, with the British until 1997, so they have more of a Western culture than mainland China. And even your standard phone apps that you can't access in mainland China, you can access in Hong Kong, right? So your Facebooks, your WhatsApps, your Twitters, you can do, but surely but slowly, I think some of their freedoms are being taken away, but that's a political conversation for another time. But yeah, this movie does dive very deep into Hong Kong culture as well as Kung Fu. One of the other kind of crazy things were that I believe Puma was a sponsor of this movie, because throughout the movie, you see Puma balls, you see Puma shoes and all that. It's just Puma product placement everywhere in this movie. So that was really interesting to see.
It's kind of implied at one point, I guess, to get like a deal, right? Where they go to that shop and the businessman's like, hey, pick what you want. And then they wrestle him out of the way and just start like jumping at the shoes kind of.
Yeah. Also, another shout out to Puma in this movie is when the ball is kicked at speed, it actually turns into a
Puma.
Yeah, the Puma. Is Puma actually an animal?
Yeah, that's a lynx.
It's a lynx?
Right?
I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Or cougar. Cougar is a lynx. A puma is a different thing. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So we actually, just while we were on the subject a couple of minutes ago, that this is an homage to Hong Kong and the culture there. This movie was actually banned in mainland China because it did not await certification before being released in Hong Kong. So, of course, the Chinese government was pretty pissed off about that. And they're like, nope, not here. Was never released in China. But for you guys, what did you guys think overall about, maybe some of the football that was played in this movie or lack thereof?
It was so like coming from last week where we had When Saturday Comes, and Sean Bean's entire message was that he wanted it to be real gritty football without any fantasy elements, and then coming into this where I don't think even when the guy does keep you uppies, which is now a prerequisite for any footy movie that we do, he does it with an egg, and then during the match, like you were saying, the ball turns into a puma, and then everyone has a characteristic that their name is based on. So we have lightweight, iron leg, steel stomach guy. I don't remember what his name is. Might be steel stomach, but they all have these different kind of superpowers that they're playing off of. And honestly, it's really cool. Like it's a huge break from what we're used to, and is the only other movie that's done something like this. But it was just awesome to like incorporate the kung fu into it. And even if the ball was CG, the actors did a pretty good job of playing around that. You never really broke kind of the illusion of them doing this crazy kung fu.
Yeah, definitely earlier on for sure. The final game kind of, there's more suspension then, but when they're training and stuff, it feels like they're genuinely like doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I also really like that the team they assemble kind of, and they're all different personalities. I thought it was super cool. And like they go around and they have a picture of themselves as old kids, and none of them kind of want to join until they all kind of have different circumstances. Like there's that one that he still calls Small Brother, who I think is the lightweight one.
Lightweight.
Yeah, and they go to that shop and he's just eating chips.
Yeah,
so
he's actually overweight.
Yeah, he's overweight and he can't stop eating. He's just eating so much, just all over his face. And he's like working in like a store that looks like Costco, and he's just like, "Oh, come on, guy."
what do people call him now? It's like people don't call me lightweight anymore. They call me
something pig, wasn't it?
Fat Pig, right?
Fat Pig, yeah.
And then a customer walks up and she's like, "Hey, Fat Pig, get me that toilet roll in the very top."
Oh, Lazy Pig. That's
lazy Pig.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, and you're the only one who calls me little brother. Yeah.
Maybe it's just me, but I don't think this movie did a good job of explaining why they chose to ultimately join the soccer team. It's like, they were all protesting at first saying, hey, we don't have time for this. But it's like, why did they actually decide to come to that first practice that Golden Leg holds?
I guess they all, because the master that they learned Kung Fu from died, right?
Yeah.
And then I guess they all kind of have their own circumstances that make them reconsider their life, right? So Lazy Pig, it's like, God, my life sucks here. And then he holds up that photo and he's like, oh, God, these were good times. Yeah. There's the guy that flips the coin and he says there's more chance of you winning it than landing on its side. And you see him eating noodles and he's kind of like, hang on a sec. There's Ironhead who's like getting abused by his boss in this crappy looking nightclub and bar or whatever it is. And he's getting his head smashed.
Was that the karaoke scene?
Yeah. So
I love that scene.
So shortly after that scene, he's like sat in a washroom and he's like, clean the washroom, and he's banging him on the head with the glasses still.
Yeah, but that scene when they're getting beat up by the customers and the guy's like, no, I'm Ironhead. He's Steel Leg.
Yeah.
They're hitting him like they had hit him Steel Leg in the head. And he's like, no, Steel Leg.
Dressed like cut rate Shaolin monks, kind of because there's that stage show, isn't there? Shaolin monks, and they dress like that, but like,
and the guy's like, but the customer's always right. And they're like, okay, I guess. So they just keep getting beaten up.
Yeah. This might be a hot take for you guys and probably a great time to discuss this. Hot take from me. I think Diamantino is weirder than this.
I don't know, man.
By the way, for those of you who don't know, Diamantino is a movie that we reviewed last season. Loosely based off of Cristiano Ronaldo, you would say, sort of?
Very loosely.
It's about this dumb, stupid, dense, whatever. He's just hallucinating the whole movie or something like that.
He's got the mind of a child. It's almost like a Michael Jackson type guy where he lives on his own Neverland ranch with a pet monkey, and it's
I don't actually think I disagree with you.
Yeah, I don't think this movie's that weird.
In the way,
this movie's super weird, man.
We'll probably talk about it more when we get to anime films that we're going to cover and stuff, but like Asian films are really weird, end of. And I guess this is one that's slightly more palatable because it has football in it.
Yeah.
But I think this is just the norm. There's more films like this than there are like Diamantino.
Yeah.
Which makes Diamantino weird.
Outside of soccer films.
Yeah.
Yeah. I the first time I watched this, do you guys know of Pacific Mall up in Markham?
Yes,
Ontario. Yeah. So back then you used to go there and you'd buy like a handful of DVDs because torrenting movies back then was impossible. Like dial-up connections, right? So I would grab a handful of like Asian cinema with Jackie Chan films, Twin Effect, which was like a vampire movie, and they were all kind of like this. So it wasn't a huge shock to see a movie like this because they all did have like this absurd humor to it. And I mean, even if you look at a movie like Parasite, which came out recently, it's a very serious movie, but then there's still these like slapstick moments in it, which just kind of take you out of it. But that's just Asian cinema, right? That's what's kind of beautiful about exposing yourself to different types of international films.
Yeah, there's some movie, I can't remember what it's called. I think it might even just be called Ping Pong. And it's about table tennis. It's an Asian film. It's very similar to this. I watched it years ago.
There was an American one about table tennis that was terrible.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Something.
Balls, something. Yeah. But I mean, moving on, essentially, with the, I think 5 or 6 Shaolin brothers, they form a team, and then they play their first friendly against these other guys that they had a fight with in a previous scene, and they're just getting, smoked in this game. And by the way, there's a lot of moments in this movie where it's straight humiliating another person, right? So it starts with the very first scene where the guy puts his shoe on another guy's head, on Golden Leg's head. And basically, that's how you, what is it like? Not respect, but that's how you humiliate another person, by putting your shoe on another person's head so somebody else could clean it. And then in this scene that I was just describing, where they're playing the friendly against, and just prepping for the tournament, they basically get destroyed in this game. and the guy starts holding up a white flag saying, "I surrender."
Those are his underwears or his shorts. Those are his shorts.
His shorts, his shorts. And then the opposition, one of the main guys from the opposition comes up, strips right in front of him. So he takes off his pants and takes off his underwear and basically says, "Hey, if you don't want any more of this, wear my underwear on your head." And he actually does it. And I'm like, what is going on? Right? Like,
it's not played for comedy. It's such a demeaning moment.
It's very demeaning. It's very demeaning. And
also just before that, isn't that the bit where Steel Leg like ducks to the floor and suddenly there's like an army helmet on the floor and he picks it up and then he's like crawling away and he grabs a rifle.
Yeah.
And then Golden Leg's like, "What the hell are you doing? Get back in there." And he turns around and everything's normal and they're getting beaten the crap out of. It's just...
He's got his shoe as a walkie-talkie and a stick as a gun.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And then finally they realize, hey, you know what? Our Kung Fu spirit is coming back. And then they go on to, in the second half, destroy that other team. And long and behold, they're ready for this Open Cup now, this tournament. It's called the Chinese Super Cup, actually, in the movie.
Which is probably a real thing. Not the specific, but the name.
But yeah.
Maybe.
I loved the McLovin, like the Chinese McLovin guy who ran. He was like the least intimidating guy on the entire team, but he was just a dick to everybody.
And he also knew some sort of Kung Fu, right? Because there's that one scene where they fight with them. And he's like doing all these weird little poses.
Well, he's got a mallet and he's got a wrench. And he's just like beating the crap out of everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. And the whole notion of, there's teams that play dirty in this film, but dirty doesn't mean like, they make harsh tackles. It basically means they kick your ass with like wrenches and hammers and whatever else and kind of just tackle you and break your legs.
There's one scene, I think it's probably a match ahead, but where all 11 players or 10 players are lined up and they're just taking repeated shots against the guy.
Yeah, and that happened multiple times. Yeah.
What's Team Evil's owner's name? What's that guy's name?
Hung. Yeah, Coach Hung.
Yeah.
But didn't you have it was like Coach Evil Hung or something like that?
I don't know. It just says Coach Hung. Yeah.
Team Evil Coach Hung. That's his name. Yeah. Team Evil Coach Hung. Yeah. But he's saying, "Are we playing dirty?" And the other guy's like, "No, we're not playing dirty." He's like, "Oh, okay. Play dirtier." Yeah. And then they just keep doing the same thing.
Tony Pulis 101.
Yeah.
Interestingly, so we were talking about earlier that this movie was released in the US. So there was a dubbed version released in the US. And Stephen Choi actually dubbed his character in English himself.
Oh, okay.
So that's interesting. I kind of want to hear it. I want to know what his English sounds like.
He's never broken through to like mainstream, like North American cinema, right? In the way Jackie Chan has, or even like Jet Li.
It did. Shaolin Soccer did. Yeah, no, it definitely did.
But he was never a guy who would show up in like The Expendables or anything like that. Do you know what I mean?
No.
He wasn't more. He
comedy.
wasn't.
Yeah, he wasn't. He's not that popular in Western cinema in the way that Jackie Chan and Jet Li are. But this movie definitely had a wide release in the U.S. At some point in Cantonese and also dubbed in English. Interestingly, there's an Italian version that was released, and all the main characters were actually dubbed by professional Italian footballers. Oh, so I'm talking about Damiano Tomasi, Vincent Candela, Marco Del Vecchio, Sinisa Miholovic, Giuseppe Pancaro, and Angelo Peruzzi. So these are some pretty big names that actually...
yeah, there's some actual names there,
yeah. So that's...
So they didn't remake the movie, they dubbed it.
They just dubbed it, yeah.
They dubbed it, yeah.
Yeah, they just dubbed it. Speaking of remakes, actually... Stephen Chow went on to direct a Japanese movie called Shaolin Girl, which has exactly the same premise, but is about lacrosse.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, lacrosse. I didn't know anybody outside of Canada or US knew what lacrosse was.
That's really strange.
Yeah. At its time, however, this movie was the highest grossing film in Hong Kong cinema. For a while, and then it was overtaken, I think, in 2007 by something else. But when this was released in Hong Kong, it was the highest grossing Hong Kong film ever. So that's pretty interesting.
What's the budget on this? Do you know?
I don't.
$10 million.
Wow, really?
Is it actually?
Yeah.
That seems like nothing.
No.
Yeah, I mean, it shows, right? Because you can still see the CGI.
I don't know. I feel like we're being, of the time... And it still looks pretty good when you think about how bad CG could look in the 90s.
It's true, I guess.
And it's only until the very end when they start doing everything. Like, I'm sure when we talk about Footy Flicks, maybe we can talk about that last game, because that's when like everything goes insane. Like goalies' clothes ripping, unspurling off their, like them players just flying all over the shop.
Literal demon pops up.
Yeah, there's a bit with the demon, the goalkeepers, and then like the ultimate, the last goal that kind of happens. It's just all too insane.
Yeah, no, it is.
Then when it's come by, I feel like the earlier games when it's just more just the ball that's being CG'd and they're all being flung around with wires, it looks better then. Yeah.
I guess I know this movie was, dragged out over 112 minutes. I feel like the storyline wasn't really that big. It's your typical sports. At the end of the day, CGI aside, it's your typical sports movie, right? Somebody's trying to do something. They get a band of misfits together, and they go on to play in a tournament and be successful in that tournament. And yeah, let's talk about the tournament. So let's talk about the China Super Cup. So they've banded together with all their Shaolin brothers. These are misfits that have never played football before but want to use kung fu. They want to promote kung fu through football. They get to the tournament, and evil Coach Hung, basically sees them and starts laughing at them because they're all of all different shapes and sizes that are definitely not fit for football. And he basically says, you know what, this will be comedy gold. I'll pay for your entrance fee to join this tournament, just because he wants to laugh at them. And of course, they're lined up against the opposition, and the opposition starts laughing at them because, of course, they're all different shapes and sizes. They don't look like footballers. And then Steel Leg does his kung fu kick and scores right away. And he keeps doing that. And apparently the score is 40-0.
Oh, yeah, because at that point they call Hung. Yeah. He's like, what do you mean 40 to zip or something, he says?
Something like that. And at this point, Hung calls Golden Leg and says, hey, we're buddies, right? And basically offers him a bribe to say, hey, coach like one of my teams, right? Why are you coaching these misfits? He's like, no, he's like, I'll give you this check if you forfeit this tournament.
Throw the game, yeah.
If you throw the game in the final or whatever it is. That's exactly what it is. I'll give you a check if you throw the game in the final. You've never seen money like this. And he's basically like, no, I don't care about the money. I'm here for the football and the kung fu. And then he goes and he tries to go win the tournament.
But that's how he originally became crippled. So Golden Leg was a superstar at the time. And then Team Evil Coach Hung offered him a check to throw the game.
Right.
The check bounced anyways, but then he also hired a mob to cripple him after he missed the ball.
Missed that penalty. Yeah, he says that early on, that he was the one that hired the mob to break his leg, Yeah,
because then he says after this check won't bounce because he did this before,
And so for those people that have seen the movie, and even if you haven't and you're kind of following us along, of course, the ending is that Golden Leg's team that he's coaching plays Coach Hung's team in the final. So it's an evil versus good. It's kung fu versus evil. And this probably lends itself to the most preposterous soccer scenes in the film, where
it's the first scene where everybody has powers, right?
Exactly.
Because the Team Evil players have been injected with American drugs, whatever the hell that
the American steroids,
yeah.
We'll assume they're steroids,
Yeah, something steroids, magic pills, who knows? But it just goes through all these preposterous scenes. Basically, Team Evil is out to injure every single player that plays for Golden Leg's team. And they're mostly successful at that. And at one point, they injure both goalkeepers. So they have the Bruce Lee lookalike who's doing an awesome job in goal, stopping everything, making it look very slick. But then he gets injured. And then the guy in the glasses, I forgot his name. Is it Iron? No, it's the stomach guy.
Yes, because he goes in goal, and that's when they do that. They come up with the tactic of, they call it the Shaolin barricade shield, where they all stand in front and he's kind of at the bottom of it.
Yeah.
That was the businessman, right?
That's the businessman, yeah.
The coin guy, and he's like holding his chest, and then they try to score that way. And I think, is that the one where...
It's Iron Shirt. I believe that's Iron Shirt.
Oh, okay.
Iron Shirt, Tim.
Iron Shirt, yeah. So he's in goal, but he also gets injured.
Yeah, because he keeps blocking it, getting up, getting up. And then...
Yeah. And then...
That's why he calls somebody on the Nokia, and he's like, is it Nokia?
Oh, yeah,
Nokia.
And says, I love you, I've
loved you for 20 years.
Because he's the one who's... like they keep shooting at him, and then eventually... there's like there's almost like someone yells special attack or something, and he shoots so hard that it rips all his clothes off and like shatters camera lenses and stuff.
Wow.
And it's just crazy.
That's crazy. But then, of course, they're short, and the referee goes, hey, if you can't field 7 players, you have to forfeit this game. Team Evil thinks they've won. But then a magical ally shows up, and it's... I don't know if she's his love interest. I don't know if she sings love or Steel Leg's love interest, but definitely they've got something going on.
Oh, he tells her we're friends forever.
He friend zoned her. Yeah. She shows up all bald because I think she's trying to pass as a boy.
Yeah, that's one of the funniest scenes as well. He says, why do you look like E.T.?
Phone home, you're not a player or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I was like, she doesn't look like E.T. She looks more like one of the, I don't know if you guys ever saw the Dan Aykroyd movie Coneheads.
Oh,
she looks like one of them rather than E.T. But it's still a really funny joke.
So Mui shows up to save the day. She plays in goal. She's got wicked Tai Chi moves in this, right? But another fast fact about her is that every time they shot a scene where she was bald like that for soccer, it took her 8 to 10 hours of makeup to get ready.
Why?
I have no idea.
It doesn't seem worth it because it didn't even look that convincing. It looked like she was just wearing a shower cap.
That's one of the fast facts.
With like the makeup to blend it slightly. I feel like that could be done quicker.
Well,
when they do Guardians of the Galaxy now with Dave Bautista Drax, that takes 8 hours, and that's literally almost his entire body.
Yeah.
Well, I've been in a play as a kid where somebody had to be bald, and they did that rather quickly, man. It didn't take that long. So I don't know what was going on, but one of the fast fact, 8 to 10 hours each day just to get ready as a bald boy.
CGI'd it.
That makeup person's getting paid by the hour for sure.
100%. They're dragging it out. No,
totally.
Yeah. So of course she comes in to save the day. And who is it that scores the final goal? Is it Steel Leg that scores the final goal?
He does the whirlwind, right?
He does the whirlwind, exactly, and it goes
her
past.
Her thing kind of sets it off. She does all the Tai Chi and does a sign of the yin and yang that kind of sets the ball in motion, right? And then
she got the assist. Like Allison, she got the assist. So they win the game and they win the Chinese Super Cup, sticking it to Coach Evil Hung.
I guess the only thing is it's not immediately obvious that they've scored, right? Because the tornado basically rips the entire pitch apart.
Yeah.
And then kind of like the camera's like panning around, looking where everyone is, and you kind of see the ball at the end of the pitch, and you see the goals like bent over. So it's pretty obvious it went in the goal, kind of.
Yeah.
And then still like passes out, doesn't he? And comes around, and he's being chucked up and down in the stands by the other players.
I love that scene where they're all utilizing their powers, and then Steel Leg kicks the ball so hard, and it hits the post, but it gets like indented into the post.
Yes. Yeah. Doesn't the keeper like move the post to bounce it off the post or something?
I can't remember. Literally,
I think he like grabs hold of it and juts it, and then it bends the post. Yeah, and he like looks in disbelief and like snaps across.
Yeah. It's a cool movie, man. It's weird the first time you watch it, but like I was saying, like once you there are no rules in this universe. It's not like established early on that yes, people can fly, or yes, this person does this. People can break out into musicals apparently at any point. So it's always keeping you on your toes.
That's what it is, right?
The other weird thing about it, right? Like they make out that the Kung Fu's mystical powers, but then at the end of the film, it shows how Kung Fu's become a part of modern life.
Exactly.
Like there's a woman that parks the car. There's a guy that kicks
the Force in Star Wars.
And everybody,
Yeah. And so, I mean, I think that's the real... So what I mentioned in the beginning, I think the main plot line is that Steel Leg wants to popularize Kung Fu by using it in conjunction with something else. And in this case, it ends up being soccer. But you see that, when they win the China Super Cup, and they're all famous. They show a newspaper clipping of them in the news that, when he's simply just running down the street, he now sees people, just the public, using Kung Fu to do things, whether that's, cutting bushes or parking cars. They basically show all the same scenes that they showed in the beginning of the movie, where people didn't do Kung Fu and failed at their jobs, to now at the end of the movie where they're using Kung Fu and actually doing everything efficiently, whether that's not slipping on a banana peel, shaving bushes, or parking cars. So
I wouldn't be surprised if that was another homage to Bruce Lee, because Bruce Lee came to America to open karate schools.
Yeah.
and teach karate across America, and it made him some enemies.
Of course.
Back in, it was Hong Kong. I always get this wrong.
America and Hong Kong. So in San Francisco, they also had this legion of like Chinese Americans, and basically their whole thing was, you shouldn't teach the Guaylo our secrets, which Guaylo means foreigners. Yeah. And so for them, it was a very secretive thing, I guess. At that point, it was one of the, pillars of their culture, which was not meant for mass consumption by foreigners. But, Bruce Lee kind of popularized that and brought Asian martial arts to the West. Let's get into the footy flicks. The unrealistic footy flicks in this film. But Mark, give us your favorite footy flicks, man.
It's got to be one of the tournament scenes. There's so many absurd, weird scenes in this movie. I can't pick just one. I'm going to go with... I can't decide. Adam, go first.
I think I'm going to go for the one... I think it's the Bruce Lee goalkeeper, where the guy takes the shot, like they're just taking shot after shot against him. And one of the guy does a shot that's kind of like Trinity's like crane kick from the first Matrix, and he sets him on fire. And then shortly after that, like his hand starts to bleed. Like you see his gloves all ripped, and then that's when they stretch him off. And it's just so melodramatic and ridiculous. I think that one. Yeah, and then I also like the one earlier on where they're all throwing the shoes at him, and the goalkeeper stops all the shoes and like spins them all up and hurls them back at them.
Oh, right.
After their powers kind of get in that first game against the bullies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got one, Mark?
I had the movie open. I was flipping through it, trying to remember like one of the. They're all crazy, man. They all kind of like just like blend together. But yeah, the Bruce Lee scene where he kind of stands up to him and he's doing the Bruce Lee the
backing
thing.
Him on, yeah.
And then it cuts to his hands, and the goalie gloves are already, the keeper gloves are ripped open. His fingers are already bleeding. He's done for. But he does he catches the like Hadouken soccer ball, and it's just burning through him. And it's so. It's just like Street Fighter-ish and Kung Fu-ish, and the like Omega Flame burns through him, and then it rips apart his arms. His arms are getting like the radiation burns, and then he passes out from the exhaustion. And then the ball lands in front of him, and the guy just kind of like nudges it across the line. It's just cool. That was kind of like the apex of crazy soccer scenes for me in this.
Yeah.
Yourself, Forgive?
So for myself, actually, there's this one scene. This is in the final game when they're playing Team Evil. I think the goalie... And I think this is the Bruce Lee guy. He lobs it to Steel Leg. And Steel Leg kind of does this one like Ronaldinho-esque flick. So he flicks it. He's standing this way and the defender's behind him. He flicks it over the defender and just turns them completely. And I was like, that may be the only realistic scene in this movie. And that was cool. And then right after that move, he does an unrealistic pass across the field. And they basically play a 1-2 with each other. That's completely unrealistic. But that flick was awesome. And then this happens in the final game against Team Evil. But that flick was like, damn. Like,
there was a scene with what's the name of the guy with the steel chest? Iron chest?
Something like that.
Something like that. But
Iron shirt. Yeah.
He's he's almost doing like CR7 crossovers, but he's trying to do them with his stomach. Like he's trying to.
You know
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's not doing step overs with his stomach literally, but he's trying to like deke the guy out with his stomach.
Yeah. No, it's crazy.
I wondered if that bit was like mocking football, kind of like here's all these jazzy step overs and they don't actually get anywhere. I think I might have written that in my notes, but that is semi-realistic, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, definitely some interesting footy flicks in this one. I think apart from footy flicks, I think the one question I want to ask, briefly discuss, is what do you think the legacy of this movie is? Is it more about, hey, we want to promote Kung Fu, or is it just, hey, this is a comedy? What do you really think is the point of this movie?
It's obvious that Stephen Chow did have a love of soccer. I mean, he wouldn't combine the kung fu with the soccer for no reason.
Right.
I'm not sure if it has a legacy. I mean, it's become a cult classic in many ways.
Yeah.
But it's not a film that people flock to or often bring up. Whenever you do discuss favorite soccer movies, I know Shaolin Soccer is almost immediately mentioned, but it's because it is so unique in that regard. Nothing else has really attempted this. I mean, we've mentioned Diamantino, but it's only because Diamantino is such a weird soccer movie. I would love to see somebody kind of take another stab at this, but I don't know if you can ever replicate this craziness.
No. So apparently I'm reading up on Stephen Chow. So since the age of 9, he saw a Bruce Lee film, and it inspired himself to become a martial arts star.
Nothing about soccer?
Nothing about soccer. No, nothing that I could find. But I mean, apart from mentions of Shaolin Soccer, but nothing about him liking soccer.
Yeah, you get an AC Milan jersey in this
yeah,
film.
one of the kids in that early games wearing an AC Milan.
Yeah. This is 2001. So let's say the movie was shot. Yeah, that's AC Milan. They're peaking at that time. I think they were good at that time.
Yeah.
Maldini. Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
Not a Syriaga.
Yeah. I mean, Maldini was there. I'm not sure if Nesta was there at that time, but
2001.
Maldini, Nesta, Cafu. I'm not even sure.
I think when they last won the title in like 2010 or something, right? But then before then they would have won it in like 99 or something. This was like back end of AC Milan being very good, like 90s AC Milan, yeah. And then they won it in like 2004 or something, 2005. Yeah, this is like back end of the last great AC Milan team, I guess.
I mean, in the mid 2000s, they were amazing too, right? I mean, the team that faced Liverpool in the 2005 Champions League, and then they won it in 2007 again. But they had Serginho, Kaka Kaladze, who was okay, Costa Curta, Maldini, of course, Roque Jr., and this is just their defense. So Andrea Pirlo, Gennaro Gattuso, Rui Costa, Ambrosini. Yeah, this team is stacked.
Yeah.
Shevchenko, Inzaghi. Yep.
Yeah.
Popular team around that time.
Where was Chinese soccer at this time? There was no Super League yet, right? That was like late 2000s.
Yeah, I don't know.
Interesting though. This movie came out in 2001. I think China PR first World Cup appearance was in 2002. No,
2002, right? Yeah, Korea, Japan.
Yeah.
So Shaolin Soccer encouraged a generation. Look at that. They made it to the World Cup.
They were on the cusp before this came out.
That's it. That pushed them over the edge to say, you know what, we're going to take it to the World Cup. We're going to, we have our distinct way of playing. It's called Shaolin Soccer. They lost every single game in the group stage, but that's beside the point.
They were at the dance.
That's it.
Yeah.
I hope Canada gets to the dance now in my lifetimes.
2026 will be there regardless.
Well, yeah.
By default. Qualification.
But yeah, so we've discussed the movie at length, the themes, the footy flicks. I think it's about that time that we move on to trivia.
Let's do it.
And so, because this is a Chinese movie, the trivia theme is going to be Chinese soccer. Not necessarily about the movie, but about Chinese soccer in general. I hope you guys didn't do too much research because...
Nope.
Anyway, so first question.
Came in fresh.
And we're all tied right now because Adam and I got 0 points last time, right?
Yeah.
It's poor outing. But yeah, let's start with question number 1. This should be easy, maybe, but we'll give it to... So we'll start with Mark first. Actually, alphabetical. We'll start with Adam first. Who is Chinese Super League's record signing? Is it Hulk? Is it Oscar? Is it Marco Arnautovic, sorry. Or is it Carlos Tevez?
Didn't we do this? Like top 5, why would we have done it before?
Adam,
or did we do Brazilian? No, it was Brazilian footballers, wasn't it?
Don't say anything, man. We both know the answer. We just use it against Regav.
Is it Oscar? 56 million? Very specific number.
Mark?
I want to say Hulk, but I think that was number 2. I'm going to say, what was it? Oscar, Hulk,
Arnautovic, and Carlos Tevez.
Oscar.
You're both correct.
Yes.
And now remembering, yes, we did do this question in the past. All right, don't worry, man. I give you guys
Shuffle the deck again.
It's okay.
It's all good.
It's all good. This, and you guys might know this one too, actually. See, I don't pick very hard questions.
It's all for fun. It's all for draft picks at the end of the day.
It's all for draft picks, exactly. I got the last draft pick, didn't I?
Yeah.
That's why I chose this movie. China's women's team is a regular feature in the Women's World Cup. In which year did they finish as runners-up? Adam.
Christ. Now I have to try and figure out the cycle of Women's World Cups, which I'm always useless at.
I'm not going to give you choices.
No, that's okay. When was the last Women's World Cup? Last year?
2019, yeah.
So 2019. So
France,
what was even the question? When did they last qualify?
No. In which year did they finish runners-up?
Oh, she finished runners-up. So 2019, 2016, 2013. I'll say... Wait, that's not right. It's like 2009. I don't know. That wouldn't even be a year.
Mark.
I'm going to say 2011 because I have an okay memory of the Canada 2015 and 2019. I know it wasn't for sure. So I'll go 2011.
You're both wrong. It was when the U.S. women won in 1999 and Mia Hamm had that picture. They beat, actually, not only were they runners, they actually lost in penalties 5-4. So they were there. They almost won the World Cup. They lost 5-4 in penalties.
Was that Mia Hamm that did the whole bra thing? I always thought it was.
Was it Mia Hamm? Yeah,
it wasn't Mia Hamm. No, Mia Hamm was the keeper, but the other...
No, Mia Hamm's not the keeper. Mia Hamm's she's a forward.
Who am I thinking of the keeper?
USA 99. I don't want to type this into my browser.
It wasn't Mia Hamm that I'll put in US women's soccer bra. Let's see what
Brandy Chastain?
Brandy Chastain.
Brandy Chastain, that's it. Okay, but Mia Hamm was one of the most popular US players as part of that group. But Brandy Chastain as well. Good memory. Unfortunately, you don't get a point for that.
I looked it up. I didn't.
Okay.
I googled Mia Hamm bra thing, and that's what came up.
So you guys are both tied at 1. Nobody got the last question. The third one should maybe be easier. I don't know what your knowledge of Chinese football is like, but who won the 2019 edition of the Chinese Super League? Was it Guangzhou Evergrande, Shanghai SIPG, or Dalian Yingfeng? Mark, let's start with you first.
Guangzhou Evergrande, which is no, that's not. I was going to say that's the club that Didier Drogba played for, but it's not. But I'm going to say Evergrande. I'm pretty sure it's one of their perennial favorites.
How about yourself, Adam?
I'm going to say the same. I feel like they've won it 5 years in a row or something insane. Yeah, I'm going to go with them.
You guys are both correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't know how you guys know that.
It's on One Soccer, man. I'm a big CSL fan.
Oh, yeah, you're right. It is on One Soccer. I should have made this harder. I should have been like, who finished runners-up in the 2019 Chinese Super League?
No, I've never watched that.
I've never
I never have, but it's one of those internet rabbit holes I randomly find myself down sometimes. Because so many big managers crop up there, right? Like fucking Marcello Lippi was there for years. I think at that same team, Evergrande.
Rafa Benitez was there.
Yeah, Rafa Benitez was there. Is there still, right?
Is there still, yeah.
These other ones, I think, there's other big Italian managers that have been there down the years. It's just one of those I end up randomly looking at to see who's ended up there. So then,
like the MLS of Asia, right?
Yeah,
type thing.
More than though, because they're actually signing players that are in their prime, like Oscar, man, for whatever, 56 mil or whatever it was.
I thought the Chinese government put
that's what I was just
a mandate on the okay.
Yeah, you have to. I think you have to reinvest 50% of the transfer fee into local. Stuff. So
yeah, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I think they're thinking salary cap or something like that, just to invest in more local players.
Yeah, because Drogba and one other guy went to Shenhua, and then after a year they had to leave because they couldn't fulfill their salary contract.
Yeah, there's all sorts of good players. Moussa Dembele went there. But even looking at managers like Roberto Donadoni was a manager there. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst was a manager there before he moved he's at Man City now, I think, as a consultant or something. It's just insane. It's really crazy how, I guess...
We're in the rabbit hole.
Fair enough, I've just gone down the same rabbit hole again.
We've got into the rabbit hole, guys.
Yeah, I'm going to leave this open to read later. Jordi Cruyff. Johan Cruyff's son was a manager there. Anyway.
Let's get into the table before we get too far.
Yeah. So actually, before we get to the table, out of 5 stars, what are you rating this movie? We'll start with you, Mark.
I'm going to pull in ultras again. I'm going to go 3.5 on this.
Ooh. How about yourself, Adam?
I do the same. 3.5. I like really, the film's utterly bonkers, but if you look at it, try and not think of it as a football film in some regards, as an action, like a late 90s, early 2000s action film kind of. It's good.
Yeah, take it at face value for sure. No, I get it.
The other thing, like look at how many things spoofed off the Matrix and tried to copy that and failed or just didn't hit. This is less of a failure. It's more successful in its interpretation of that and appropriating it to football than it is a lot of action films trying to be as good as the Matrix were back then.
Yeah.
You know what's good about this? It's not good, but it's nice. It's a PG movie. And this is probably the only PG soccer movie that we've watched that is actually good.
That's true. Yeah.
Compared to Kicking and Screaming and can't remember what else we did, but I'm like picturing like Ladybugs, and they're okay movies, but this is actually an enjoyable movie for a PG.
Yeah. That's a fair point. I would give this a 3 out of 5 stars. I think that's a fair score. We can discuss the table, but I mean, okay, let's discuss the table. I mean, we did When Saturday Comes last week. For myself, I think it goes behind that personally. Adam, what do you think?
It's really hard. This is one of those. There's such different films, and like. It's another way almost like it's hard, right? Like how qualified are we? It's not in terms of what's a good football film, right? And then what's a good film, and then like how much like Asian cinema we've seen, and whether this is good Asian cinema or bad, but it's a really good action film. I don't know if it's necessarily.
So that's the thing.
Kind of go either way, whether it's better than When Saturday Comes or not.
It's subjective, right? It's not necessarily about what's a better films, from a cinematics perspective, or what's a better football film. It's what did you enjoy watching more?
You see, When Saturday Comes is such a bad like drama film in so many ways, but it's such a nice story, kind of.
There's such different genres. It's like what's better, Captain America, The Winter Soldier, or Schindler's List? And you're like, well,
Schindler's List was filmed really well.
They're both good movies.
It's so hard. This is so bonkers. No, I feel like I don't know.
I'm going to put it above.
Mark,
you're going to put it above? Jeez. Okay, no, that's fair. I mean, that's fair.
This movie, it did have its flaws, but there were so many things about When Saturday Comes that I would have changed. Mostly the soundtrack and then the pacing of the movie, how in the last third it just decided, we got to keep this 90 minutes. So then Jimmy Muir had a character change like from one moment to the next.
Yeah.
He decided he didn't want to kill himself. He wanted to get his whole life in order. And it wasn't really earned, but we enjoyed Jimmy so much. And Sean Bean is a close relative of Adam that we let a lot of things slip under the radar. So Jimmy Muir and When Saturday Comes had a lot of an improvement needed, whereas this was pretty perfect as a crazy batshit film. So I'm going to put this above.
I think you might have swung me. Yeah. I think it's a crazy film, and there is, when you think about what would you change, there's weird stuff we might not understand, but I wouldn't change it because it's all quirky and still funny in its own way. But When Saturday Comes, that tonal shift, when Saturday Comes, like 25 minutes towards the end, suddenly remembers it's a football film and they got to get him to where he needs to be, whereas this is a football film all the way through. There's football all the way through this in some way, shape or form, whether it's the keeping keepy uppies with an egg or the insane goal that ultimately wins it. It's still a football film pretty much throughout. So I guess it goes above.
Oof, that's interesting coming from you, because I thought the whole Sheffield thing would have swung you, and the fact that you're related to Sean Bean. I thought,
I'm trying to be some like
we're gonna pick family over Miramax. We're gonna pick family over Miramax.
Weinstein.
Over Weinstein, whatever. We should be picking everything over Weinstein, no? But no, that was great. Yeah, of course, I definitely enjoyed the movie. So for me, it is a solid 3 out of 5. I mean, that's a decent score. That's passing.
Above average.
Yeah. Anything else you guys want to say about this movie? Any lingering thoughts, comments?
Watch it. Would you recommend somebody watch it?
Oh, 100%. At least once.
Yeah.
Even though it's
100%.
really hard to find.
Yeah.
There was like copies selling for insane amounts on Amazon, and I was like, that's nuts. No one's going to pay that much to see this movie.
That's what I was going to say. As Mark said, Pacific Mall.